Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth, and fancy seeing you here in June. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. Hello and welcome back to Big Mouth, and you can keep this or any other conversation I ignite going over on my Twitter at MoviesTVMad, my Vero at BigMouth1, and the extension to this channel is my Instagram, BigMouth11289. And welcome to today's DCEU Extra, where we are going to take a deeper look at the Ezra Miller Crisis on Infinite Earths cameo, an unprecedented cameo that changes the game. So Variety, for once, did a really good article, and we're going to give it a read. How Crisis on Infinite Earths pulled off its Ezra Miller cameo. The Arrowverse saved its biggest surprise for the final 2 hours. TV's Barry Allen, played by Grant Gustin, met big screen Barry Allen, played by Ezra Miller. But that wasn't all. As the 5-hour event concluded with the death of Oliver Queen, Stephen Amell, whose Green Arrow kicked off the DC franchise on the CW, and the multiverse combined into an Earth Prime. We knew from last year, quite frankly, that we were going to merge and create Earth CW Arrowverse, executive producer Mark Guggenheim said. But Earth Prime sounds better, so all the CW shows will be on the same Earth. So that's pretty awesome now as well. Here someone tried to send me something. Here Guggenheim talks with Variety about how the Arrowverse has brought Miller to the DC CW universe, killing off Oliver twice and rebooting the shows. There has been a fairly strict separation of the DC film and television world. How were you able to combine the two with Miller's cameo? By the way, I've always found the separation stupid. Now with this combination, it changes everything. We were series wrapped on Arrow, and we were wrapped on the whole crossover. But we were in post, and some episodes were locked, and some were soft locked. I got a phone call from Warner Brothers boss Peter Roth saying, "I know you're locked, but can you put Ezra into the crossover?" And I said yes. And he said, "How your series wrapped? And you're wrapped on the crossover." And I said, "Yeah, I know, but if you're telling me Ezra Miller can be in the crossover, I can make it happen." I called Eric Wallace, who is the showrunner of The Flash, and he called up Grant Gustin because the only thing that was our only concern was the fault we didn't want to do it unless Grant was 100% on board with it. And he was. He was incredibly enthusiastic and on board with it. And then we got on the phone with Ezra Miller and told him the scene I had written. He was completely into it, and we put together a unit of the Flash crew on the Flash since Arrow's team, which had produced the rest of the hour, was gone. And much to our surprise, no one noticed Ezra Miller was in Vancouver, and no one leaked it from the crew, which we appreciate, so we were able to keep it a surprise. I think the threat of death or destruction probably scared everyone from leaking it, but it was a massive surprise. And in these days of bloggers and leaks, it was amazing that it wasn't leaked. Combining the multiverse made it so there was only one version of each hero left. Does that mean that Miller's Flash no longer exists in the DC television world? The interviewer for Variety asks. I will leave that question to Warner Bros. And DC. They have a wonderful vision for not just Ezra's Flash, but also the entire DC universe. Jim Lee is the man to talk to there. So it's looking like Jim Lee is not necessarily running the whole thing, but let's not forget, Jim Lee is a legendary, iconic DC comic book artist, and he's got a big role now ever since after the calamity of Justice League. Oliver ended up dying twice over the course of the crossover. What led to the decision to pull that figurative trigger twice? The creative behind it was we're faced with the question of how do we surprise the audience when we spoiled the story a year ago. The creative conversations were pretty simple. I shared that plan with executive producer Greg Berlanti, who was into it, and then I pitched it to Stephen, and Stephen and I have been talking about for years that the end of the Arrow story is Oliver's death, and we were always been on the same page. I think he enjoyed A, the opportunity to play 2 death scenes, and B, the creative sleight of hand in terms of surprising the audience. That's the other thing that Stephen and I have always agreed on, surprising the audience with the unexpected. So it just made sense. The only lingering question was, if we killed off Oliver in Arrow Season 8, Episode 8, what's the series finale? And we had a plan for that as well. Now, that's very interesting. Now, I'm going to read the rest of this, even though it's not DCEU related, because I think it's interesting for the whole universe. The introduction of Earth Prime has led to new changes like Baby Sarah's return, Lex Luthor a hero, etc. How will the shows be handling the reveal of the difference going forward? And for a character like Laurel, Katie Cassidy, whose Earth 1 Laurel was killed and has been playing Earth 2 over the past few years, which version is left? Certainly the question of which Laurel is left is going to be answered very definitively in Arrow Season 8, Episode 9. But the explanation for the result is given very strong in Episode 10. We went into the crossover 9. We would end with the combining of the Earth and the reboot of the universe. And the way we saw there is an opportunity going forward after Crisis to slowly reveal all of the weird changes. Arrow showrunner Beth Schwartz and I went into the crossover 9 in the final episode that we wanted to reveal that Baby Sarah, who was eliminated in Flashpoint, was returned to the timeline. That was very important to us. We had actually considered doing it after Elseworlds last year, actually, but thought it had more punch if it was part of the universe reboot of Crisis. Lex seems to be a wild card, and now he has history with characters from all of the Arrowverse shows. What's next for him? That's really a question for the Supergirl showrunners. I went to them, I said, we're going to do a reboot. We're going to combine the universes. Anything you wanted to introduce to your shows now is really, really good time. And this was something that Supergirl showrunners Robert Rovner and Jessica Qualler came back with. We were really excited about it. Now, this is interesting because I think they're using this kind of multiverse reboot of a way of righting some of the wrongs, like killing off the original Earth 1 Laurel. I suspect the one who survived is Earth 1 Laurel. And that is very intriguing and very interesting. The Arrowverse characters have long been interconnected, but now they're all residing on the same Earth. How does that change the stakes for things going forward when the shows have to remain quasi-separate? I think the Marvel film universe deals with it every time too. Like in Iron Man 3, why doesn't Tony Stark call upon the Avengers? We've had this issue ever since we introduced the Flash into the Arrowverse. Why doesn't Oliver call upon his superpowered friends? The way we tend to solve that problem historically, and I don't think this will change post-crisis, is when it's appropriate story-wise and doesn't feel like a departure. Well mentioned, why don't you call another hero and give an explanation? The very end of the crossover hinted at the introduction of Gleek and the Wonder Twins. Is that something that fans can look forward to on Legends of Tomorrow, the next crossover, or sometime in the future? That was something that we knew we wanted to end with, that fun bit. There were early versions of the draft that had the Wonder Twins actually in it. I consider the Wonder Twins kind of a jump ball. We'll see what show wants to grab it. Maybe a new show, or maybe they'll be part of the Legends in the end. Who knows? So that's the article, a very interesting article. But of course, we're interested in the DCEU aspect of it. And what does this mean? There are a lot of questions to be answered. Why did the heads of Warner Brothers, like Peter Roth, who is a very prominent head and has been for a very long time, he's the man who commissioned Smallville, who kept Smallville going, was very passionate about the show. So he obviously got a phone call, and I'm just kind of trying to do an Inspector Clouseau, Sherlock Holmes here, right? So they definitely wanted Ezra Miller in this. And I spoke about this a little bit on the DCEU Daily, where I suspect when Andres Muschietti, the director of the Flash movie, was talking a Flashpoint, but not the one that we're expecting, that maybe we may see a combination of Arrowverse characters, of DCEU characters. This is very exciting and very interesting now. And then that takes me to the Batman, which clearly could be a brand new universe. It doesn't matter what universe your characters are in now. This cameo has changed the game. It's combined the whole of the DC universe. And for me, that's not only very interesting, not very exciting, not just very exciting, it's very transgender. Because at the end of the day, there are more potential, It's more exciting for the consumer. And this, that Ezra Miller cameo wasn't just a blatant cameo, right? This wasn't just fan service. Something is happening here. And I expect lots of exciting announcements to come.